Picture a room you were never meant to imagine. Not the public streets, not the hilltop sermons, not the crowds pressing for miracles. This is a hidden chamber where only the closest remained. Stone walls, oil lamps, a single bowl of water on a low table, and a silence so thick it feels like breath held in the lungs of the world. Jesus is there, calm, focused, nothing like the polished icon you were given. Not theatrical, not shouting, not trying to convince anyone, because the people in this room don't need convincing. They already carry something inside them that responds to truth like metal to a magnet. They are what the old texts called the ones with the spark, the ones who hear what others don't, the ones who feel reality's seams. And in this chamber, after the resurrection, after the public story ends, he does something small, so small, it's almost insulting to power. He lifts a cup of water. He leans toward it not like a priest, not like a performer, but like someone speaking to a living system. And he says 2 words, not a prayer, not gratitude, not permission, a sequence, an activation, SFX. A single drop hits the surface of water, the ripple expands. The text says the water shimmered, as if light moved through it from within. And when the disciples drank, they didn't describe it as inspiring. They didn't call it a metaphor. They reported it like a switch being flipped in the body. Fog lifting, energy rising, a sudden feeling of being present again, as if their own minds had been returned to them. Now, here's the part that makes institutions nervous. If this is real, if a person can activate water with nothing but breath, presence, and 2 spoken cues, then an entire system of intermediaries becomes optional. No gatekeepers, no permissions, no approved phrase that only certain hands are allowed to use. Just you, water, and a practice so simple it feels dangerous. Because complex rituals create dependency, but simple practices create sovereignty. Music, slight rise, a pulse begins, like a heartbeat. Before we go further, do this. Take a breath. Not a performance breath, not a stress breath. A slow inhale and an even slower exhale. Now imagine a glass of water in front of you. Tap, filtered, bottled, doesn't matter. Just imagine it's there. Because what you're about to hear is not meant to be believed. It's meant to be tried. And that is exactly why it frightens the systems that survive on belief alone. The real reason water. The old stories always point to water. Rivers, wells, crossings, baptism, tears, rain, floods, wine, blood. Water is never just water in sacred language. It's always a bridge, because water is the most honest mirror we have. It reflects what you bring to it. Still water shows you your face. Moving water shows you change. Boiling water shows you force. Frozen water shows you preservation. And your body? Your body is a living river, a moving ocean. We argue about what we are: mind, spirit, identity, personality. But underneath all of it, the mechanics are simple. You are mostly water. Your cells float in it. Your brain runs through it. Your blood carries it. Your nerves transmit signals in a wet world. So if anything can carry a state, if anything can hold an instruction long enough to reach every part of you, water is the obvious messenger. And in every tradition that survived the fire, water is treated like more than matter. Not because it's magic, because it's responsive. Sephex, soft shimmering, like a glass singing. Some modern experiments and spiritual traditions claim water responds to environment words, sound, intention. Not everyone agrees on why, but across centuries, the same pattern repeats. Water isn't passive. It records atmosphere. It carries the signature of a room. It carries the residue of stress. It carries the calm of silence. And if you accept even the possibility of that, even a fraction, then the next idea becomes unavoidable. If water can carry a state, then drinking it is not just hydration. It's ingestion of a frequency, a mood, a code. So the question becomes, what have you been drinking your whole life? And whose hands have been on the blessing button? Why it was buried? Think like an institution for a moment. If you can teach someone a direct, repeatable method, something they can do at midnight in their kitchen, something that makes them feel clear, connected, strong, without needing a building, a title, a hierarchy, then what happens to the structure built on scarcity? It collapses. Because the moment the common person discovers a direct access technique, the priesthood loses its monopoly. So the pattern repeats through history. A method appears. The method spreads. The method is rebranded, then controlled, then sold back to you. Holy water becomes institutional property. Approved phrases replace living contact. The ritual remains, but the sovereignty is removed, because the ritual without sovereignty is safe. It looks spiritual, but it produces dependency. And dependency is the true sacrament of control. Music, low tension rises, a faint metallic scrape. Now here is your pivot point, because you're not here for theology. You're here for something you can feel, something immediate. Something that creates that exact sensation. My cells just woke up. Whether you interpret that as biology, psychology, or spirituality, the effect you're seeking is clarity, presence, a clean return to yourself. So let's talk about the practice, the structure, the sequence. The two-word sequence, cinematic version. The transmission preserved in your narrative is simple. First, I am. Second, living water. But the power is not in the syllables. The power is in the order. The power is in what each phrase does to you before it ever touches the cup. Because the first phrase isn't for the water. It's for the operator. It's for you. I am is an identity switch. It is not a request. It is not a plea. It's a statement that pulls your attention back from the outside world and returns it to the center. A person in panic lives outside themselves. A person in shame lives outside themselves. A person seeking approval lives outside themselves. But I am pulls you home. It says, I exist. I'm here. I'm present. I'm not scattered. And the moment your attention returns, your body changes, breath slows, shoulders drop. The nervous system stops broadcasting emergency. You become coherent, and coherence is an upgrade. SFX, a subtle click sound, like a lock opening. Then the second phrase, living water, not as superstition, as a direction of attention. You are naming the water as responsive. You are treating it like a carrier. And when you treat something like a carrier, you engage with it differently. Your hands steady, your gaze softens, your breath becomes deliberate. You stop acting like water is just a dead object, and you begin interacting like it's a participant in the exchange. So the two words are really a two-stage alignment. Stage 1, align the operator. Stage 2, align the medium. That's the structure. And now we turn it into a practice. The practice, 15 seconds. Music, softens, gives space for instruction. When you do this tonight, do it like this. Hold a glass of water. Don't rush, just hold it. Feel the temperature through the glass. Notice the weight. Notice how your hand automatically adjusts its grip, even without thinking. Now look at the water, not intensely, not aggressively, like you're greeting something. Then speak. E-am. Pause for 2 seconds. Not because the water needs time, because you do. In those 2 seconds, notice what happens in your chest. Some people feel warmth, some feel pressure release, some feel nothing at first. But the point is, you're giving your system time to shift into presence. Then speak. Living water. Pause again. And in the pause, watch. Sometimes the mind tries to dismiss everything instantly. That's normal. It's trained to, but watch anyway. For some, the shimmer is literal, a small, almost optical change. For others, it's not visual. It's sensation, warmth in the palms, tingling, a quiet calm. Then drink. Not like you're chugging after a workout. Drink like you're listening. Take 2 or 3 slow swallows. And then, wait. 30 seconds. 60 seconds. Notice what moves first. For many people, it's the solar plexus warmth, a settling, a drop-in. For others, it's the mind less static, fewer racing loops. For others, it's the body energy without jitter. And if nothing happens, do not panic, because the first battle is not activation. The first battle is retraining attention, and attention is a muscle. Try it again tomorrow with deeper presence. Try it when you're not multitasking. Try it when you're not performing, because the method is not about magic words. It's about coherence, why it feels immediate. Your story says seconds, and that's believable in one sense, even without mysticism. When you slow down, breathe, focus, and perform a meaningful ritual, your nervous system can change fast. Stress chemistry shifts fast. Presence can arrive fast. And when presence arrives, fog can lift fast. So whether a listener interprets this as frequency programming or psychophysiology, the practice can still produce an immediate felt effect. That's important because it means you can tell the story in a way that invites experience instead of forcing belief. And that's how we keep it cinematic without turning it into brittle claims. You say, try it. Watch what moves. See if your mind gets quieter. See if your body settles. Because reality doesn't care about arguments. Reality cares about results. The dark twist. Why they don't want you doing it. Music returns with a darker pulse, faint whisper-like textures. Now comes the part that hooks the audience. Because once you introduce a practice that creates clarity, you need an antagonist, not a cartoon villain, a system, a design. The ancient texts call it the archonic architecture, forces that thrive on confusion, shame, and spiritual dependency. Whether a listener believes in literal entities or sees it as metaphor for control systems, the effect is the same. A confused person is easy to steer. A coherent person is hard to harvest. And water is where the harvest often begins, because a dehydrated nervous system is anxious. An anxious nervous system is suggestible. A suggestible mind reaches outward, begging, pleading, searching, which creates the perfect loop of dependency. So the cinematic claim becomes, they don't fear your prayers, they fear your clarity. They don't fear your rituals, they fear your sovereignty. They don't fear your beliefs, they fear your direct access. And a daily water practice done with presence is the simplest form of direct access, because it builds a stable baseline, not a peak experience once a month. A baseline, and a stable baseline changes everything. Story beats for a 45-minute arc. To help your audio keep momentum, here's a full cinematic arc you can read as is. Beat 1. The Hidden Chamber. SFX. Stone room ambience. Oil lamp crackle. In that chamber, the disciples don't ask for miracles. They ask for survival. How do we stay connected in a world built to numb us? Jesus doesn't answer with philosophy. He answers with a cup, because he knows something they don't. You don't lose connection because you lack faith. You lose connection because your signal gets drowned out, and the signal must be refreshed daily. So he teaches them a daily practice so small it can be hidden inside ordinary life. No one can confiscate it. No one can forbid it, because it looks like nothing. A man drinking water, but the ones in the room understand. This is not drinking. This is transmission. Beat 2. Why water? Water is everywhere, and that's the point. A practice that requires rare objects creates hierarchy. A practice that requires what everyone already has creates freedom. Water is the perfect contraband. It passes through every door. It sits on every table. So if you can encode your state into what you drink, you carry your temple with you. Beat 3. The corruption of holy water. And yes, institutions kept the symbol. They kept water, but they moved the power away from you. They told you, only we can bless it. And that's always the move. Not to destroy the method, but to relocate ownership. Beat 4. The 2 words as keys. Then Jesus gives the keys. I am. Living water. Identity first. Medium second. Operator first. Instrument second. And that order is what makes it work. Because if the operator is incoherent, the medium reflects incoherence. But if the operator is coherent, the medium carries coherence. Beat 5. The sensations. This is where you slow down and describe what listeners may notice. The solar plexus warming, the forehead clearing, the chest expanding, the jaw unclenching, the quiet inside the mind that usually never arrives. You describe it like a documentary narrator. Watch what happens in the first 60 seconds. Not as a guarantee, as an invitation. Beat 6. The week-long escalation. Then you build tension. If you do this once, you'll get a glimpse. If you do it for 7 days, you get a shift. Day 1, clarity. Day 3, energy stabilizes. Day 7, synchronicities increase as narrative flavor. Day 14, the old hooks lose grip as story stakes. Again, frame as many people report, not physics proves. That keeps it compelling and safer. Beat 7, the final push. Music climbs slowly. Choir grows wider. And then you end with immediacy. Don't wait until tomorrow. Do it tonight once so your body becomes the proof. Because the real enemy is delay. And delay is the oldest trick. The full, closing call to action. Music, quiet but intense. Now listen carefully. When this audio ends, something will happen. A voice in your mind will attempt to file this away into the same drawer as everything else. Interesting. Maybe later. I'll try it someday. That voice isn't evil. It's just conditioning. It's the inertia that keeps people asleep. And the moment you postpone direct experience, the mind wins. So do this while the signal is strong. Right now, or tonight, the next time you reach for water, pause, hold the glass. I am. 2 seconds. Then, living water. 2 seconds. Drink slowly. Then wait. 30 to 60 seconds. And observe. If you feel even a small shift, that is your confirmation that you can influence your state with intention and ritual. And once you learn that, you don't need permission. You don't need a gatekeeper. You don't need fear. You only need practice. And practice done daily becomes identity. SFX. Water ripple fades into silence. If you're doing it tonight, comment, I activate now. Not for anyone else, For you, because declarations turn ideas into thresholds, and thresholds change lives. Music swells, then gently cuts to near silence. You were never meant to run your consciousness on dead routine. You were meant to remember, and sometimes remembrance begins with the simplest act on earth: a glass of water and the decision to be present. End.